baby.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. We are back at you one more again, live on a Thursday night. It's going down tonight. We got Troy from Best Dressed Balls in the building. But first and foremost, before we get to the show, man, I hope y'all feeling all right. Shout out to my lovely wife, Takara, man. Y'all make sure y'all show some love in the chat. The world famous TJ the DJ. And make sure y'all show the channel some love as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and Hulk smash that notification bell so you can get notifications every time we drop a video. Shout out to the audio only gang. Clutch Conversations is available on all major podcast platforms. That's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. So make sure you go check us out on there. When you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform, please be sure to follow, rate, and review. It really helps us out. Appreciate the support. Speaking of support, make sure you're supporting US Art and US Art Florida. The link for both organizations are in the description of this video. Make sure, if you can, man, go get a donation. If you don't have a membership, if you can, definitely go get a membership and definitely spread the word about both those organizations that are helping protect our rights as reptile keepers. As you know, the legislators, the government, whatever, constantly come at us, and so we need help. We need a unified front and strength in numbers. So definitely make sure you support. We need membership, and we need as much money as possible. So definitely make sure you go out and support. Speaking of support, man, shout out to the sponsors for supporting the show, man. Really appreciate y'all having faith in us. Really appreciate y'all showing love. We're gonna kick this sponsor video, then we're gonna get into the show. Big dreams start in small towns. Small Town Xotics is a family-ran business that specializes in high-quality ball python morphs, western hognoses, and select leopard geckos. They are proud members of US Art Florida, and the Orient Society. Stay connected with Small Town Xotics on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Witness their journey as they grow their business and showcase their animals to the world. Thank you, Small Town Xotics, for sponsoring the show.
Art comes in many forms. At Armless Angels, it comes to life.
Man, shout out to the sponsors. Shout out to the sponsors. Armless Angels and Small Town Xotics. We appreciate the support. Let's see who we got in the chat tonight. We got the homie Kaiju in the building. What's good, brother? Thank you for coming out. We got Unlimited Balls. What's good? Thanks for coming out, fam. We got the big homie Bosa. What's good? What's good? Brian Heathen Hatchery 352 in the building. And he coming up real soon. Gonna be on an episode of Clutch Conversation. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. Appreciate you coming out, brother. Hyperspace Reptiles, what's good? Good to see you here live. Thanks for coming out. Lou Balls, what's good? Thanks for coming out, fam. We got Steven, what's good? Desert Mojave Morse, thanks for coming out, fam. We got the guest in the chat, the homie Troy, what's good? Blaker's Pythons, what's good? Thanks for coming out. Eric's More Factory, thank you for coming out. We got the homie Dale in the building, another Florida representative and another future guest. Thanks for coming out. Lee Irvin, what's good? Thanks for coming out. Did I say that right? Is it Lee or Leia? I hope I said that right, at least one of those times. But thank you for coming out. Really appreciate you showing support. Leviathan, what's good? Clutch Conversations alumni, thank y'all for coming out. Blackjack Reptiles, thanks for coming out. Girl with Scales, what's good? Thanks for coming out. Summer in the building. See, the big homie Mac, what's good? We got the homie Jacob, what's good? Another Clutch Conversations alum. Brandon, what's good? Nixon Reptiles. Scales, Fins, and Feathers, thanks for coming out. See who else we got. Jerome, what's good? What's good? Thanks for coming out. We got Chris's Royal Constrictors, thank you for coming out. And last but not least, we got Sammy, what's good? Thanks for coming out. We're going to kick this intro, and then we're going to get to the show, man. Thank y'all for coming out.
Baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor, I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter, I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll add the fuel. Follow my lead, just watch your shoes. Gotta turn the heat up. This cool. Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this?
Episode 65, Best Dressed Balls. What's good? What's good? The cool jacket man himself. What's up, brother?
I'm good. I always hate that I don't wear a jacket for one of these. Like I feel like an imposter or something. But the last thing I want to be is hot and sweaty during this conversation. So I ditched the jacket.
I feel you. I thought about throwing on the blazers. I was like, nah, that's probably doing way too much.
Yeah, they're fun, man. Some shows it's great, but man, sometimes that jacket, it's a tough day.
Cool, man. Yeah, well, I definitely want to get into like the shows and stuff like that. But real quick, just in case someone listens to it later and they're not familiar with who you are, give us your elevator pitch.
Yeah, I'm Troy Schroeder. I have Best Dressed Balls. I've been in and out of the animal community for a little over 20 years. My wife and I have been together for about 25 years. We had a full-line pet store. We had got out of that when our son was born. He's now 21. We went into breeding leopard geckos and bearded dragons, and it kind of ended up to ball pythons. And we've now had ball pythons for about 10 years or just over 10 years. I'm in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Most people don't ever want to come here. We're known as the flyover state. It's where all your corn and beans come from. And outside of that, that's about it.
Nice. What's the city in Iowa again? What's it called?
Fort Dodge.
Fort Dodge, Iowa. Okay. Yep. That's what's up, man. Yeah, I definitely want to hop into the ball pythons. And so kind of going back 10 years ago when you first got into ball pythons, like what inspired you to get into the ball pythons? Like, were you coming in just to breed? Were you coming in just to keep because they interest you? What kind of motivated you at that time?
Yeah, again, our background coming from like the pet store and like we had, back then it was, you could sell, I don't want to say just about anything, but like, selling Burmese pythons and retics and things like that were a breeze. There was really no laws against us at the time. They were kind of coming into play at that point, but like in my community, big snakes weren't hard to move, and the big snakes were what really people wanted. Ball pythons were kind of, they weren't even on my map. The guy that owns Animal Plastics, Mark, he also owned a pet store at the time. So if you've got a rack from Mark and I have been friends for about 25 years as well. And so he and I would actually just order in like African crates of ball pythons, and they were like $8 a piece, you know, and we would sell them for like $40, and we'd have to sit at night and like pick ticks and stuff off them. It was an interesting deal, man. And so ball pythons really just weren't on my radar. To me, they were just kind of a boring small snake that sold well at our pet store. And, you know, if you fast forward through all that time and get to about 10 years ago, we were doing shows selling leopard geckos and bearded dragons. And it was one of those things, you know, my son was with us, and, you know, he was like, oh, I like the snakes, you know, or whatever. And I'm like telling my wife, like, I'll just get a small, like 1.2 or something, and he and I can have that as a project. And then Michael could come to the shows with us, and he could sell, you know, these little ball pythons, and me and Lisa can continue our leopard gecko and bearded dragon thing. And I remember quite well, like my wife kind of laughing, thinking and saying something, you know, to the fact of like, you'll have, you know, 30 of them in a week, you know, or something. And like, no shit, like it was literally like overnight, man. I had, you know, it just took over. So I bought a 1.2 project of albino G stripes. Okay. And the G stripe is, you know, to kind of answer your question without me rambling, the G stripe is really what motivated me at the time. And not even so much the G stripe, the albino G stripe is really what motivated me. I saw one at a show, and I was like, oh, for an albino, man, with that cool stripe, like how neat. And so, yeah, you know, I kind of dove in thinking that would be it, you know, and it grew very quick. And, you know, again, I could talk about this part of it for quite some time. But to answer your question, long and short, that's kind of how things came about.
Okay, so y'all were doing leopard geckos and bearded dragons like before that, like as an actual business, right? And so y'all were
like, so we had our before Best Dressed Balls. Me and my wife are horrible at naming things. For instance, we had 2 Akitas and we could never name them, so we named one of them Brown Dog and Black Dog because one was brown, one was black. We're horrible, absolutely horrible.
Don't complicate stuff.
Yeah, right. And so we had T and L geckos, I think, if I remember right. It was a pretty stupid name. And I actually vended under that name for quite some time. I did my first couple Tenleys under that name. I even did my first Reptile Super Show under that name. And the second one, I brought John Dagg and JSA out with us. And on the way home, that's where Best Dressed Balls came from, is me and John Dagg were talking. I had moved out of the geckos for the most part, and I just had the snakes. And so I think we switched our name from like T&L geckos to like T&L ball pythons or something. And John Dagg from JD Constriction, like on the way home was like, hey man, we got to change this up. And probably everybody here, if you've heard me before, this story, I'll make it short. I wear these jackets to a photography convention. I wanted to be flashy and showy and like not just a plain old blue jacket or brown jacket or whatever. And John saw a lot of pictures of me at these conventions in it. And so what he knew about me and like my character and like the jackets, like he kind of came up with Best Dressed Balls. And so we've now been Best Dressed Balls for probably 8-9 years, somewhere in there. 8 years, something. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So I want to go back and touch on the imports you were getting from Africa. Yeah. So did you find some really cool stuff in some of those crates?
No. You know, they literally came in like a wooden crate inside a burlap sack. I don't remember where Mark was ordering them from. It could have been from like Outback or something at the time, because I think they were kind of a big thing at the time. There was another guy out of Florida that I got stuff from, Ruby something. I can't remember what it was, but we would order from him as well. Okay. And yeah, dude, they're full of, you know, mites and ticks, and we had to give them like pan cure or something like right off the bat, because they would have, you know, parasites. They were a mess, man, an absolute mess. And we'd be up all night, like, you know, going through 100 of them and then splitting them up, and then maybe sitting there and having fun talking to each other. Or me and Lisa would bring them back to Fort Dodge. Mark was in Des Moines, so about an 1.5-hour trip for us. Yeah, man, we'd have to soak them and pick at them and get them ready for the store. And It was a mess.
How long did all that take, like, to get them like ready to go?
Man, the way I remember it, it always seems like it in the story. I want to say it took forever, right? But like, I want to say typically if we spent a night on it, you would probably have them pretty cleaned up, and then over the next day or two, like kind of going over it again. I would say in the first day or two, you probably had them ready for the store. So like back then, we sold them in. We had like a 40-gallon breeder. We threw all 50 of them in there, like. I didn't know anything, and I would have to, when I fed them, it was horrible. I would get them all out, and I had like little shoebox containers, and I would feed like 1 or 2 of them at a time in there. It was a mess, man. I didn't know. But then like on Burmese pythons and things like that, man, like, we knew what we were doing. I think a lot of it, and I'll just be honest, a lot of it I think at the time was, I don't know if I just didn't care about them like I did the big snakes. And so I feel like we put a lot of time into that and not so much time into ball pythons. So at that point, like ball python wise, like pastels were out, albino was out. I remember seeing my first pied sell at might have been at Tinley, the first Tinley. I went to the very first Tinley, but I remember seeing one sell for like 40 grand or something,
Wow.
$30,000. And I remember my wife thinking like, we'll never ever have that snake, right? And I saw albino pieds sell at a local show. A guy would bring him, Anthony McCain. Somebody might remember that name. And he, I remember they were like at the time, like at that particular show, they were like $20,000 or something, and 25 grand, and maybe even hets were. It was crazy. Anyways, man, I just never saw the ball python thing back then as a way of making money or running as a business. Like the leopard geckos, the bearded dragons, selling chameleons, selling Burmese pythons, like all of it for whatever made sense to me. But for whatever reason, ball pythons didn't. I wish it would have, right? I think about how far I would be had I like got into that kick 20, 25 years ago.
Cool. So speaking and kind of getting into that kick, what led to you changing your mindset and kind of like changing the way you thought about it and the way you approached it?
Yeah, I think selling leopard geckos and things like that and going to the shows, even our local shows. So like we started at a Des Moines, Iowa show. We did a local show in Omaha, Nebraska. We did Kansas City, Minneapolis, and then we vended our first Tinley. And I think when I vended my first Tinley, I think we had both leopard geckos and a little bit of ball pythons at the time. And I think somewhere in that, like that learning curve of like watching the ball python market, which was probably, I want to say it wasn't blowing up. It probably already blew up, but like for me, it was new. And so to see all the morphs and like every table having these, crazy designer snakes, it wowed me. And so I love color. I love like the pattern change. I like it. It spoke to me, I guess. And coming from leopard geckos, there's a lot of that too, right? Like the morph side of leopard geckos and ball pythons could maybe be, somewhat hand in hand. A lot of colored, mutations and pattern mutations. And so that was something that I really enjoyed. And so it just kind of clicked for me. And so, yeah, we ended up selling out of our leopard geckos and everything that we had, bearded dragons. I think we were doing some panther chameleons at the time, and dove, really 100% into ball pythons.
Gotcha. And so when you say 100%, like how much did the collection grow at the time? I know you said it kind of like,
man, it was so crazy. If I kind of remember right in my head, we bought that 1.2, and I probably had somewhere between 20 and 30 snakes in the first month. And I probably grew to about, I don't know, maybe 75 snakes in the first couple of years. And then I have an opportunity to buy a collection that really catapulted me. And I bought that collection probably 7 or 8 years ago at this point. So, and at that point, man, and then from there, it's been just, I don't know how to really put it in words. It's somewhat normalized, right? So now I had X amount of snakes. Now I knew like, okay, I don't need these, but I need this. And so it started being more of a business. At first, I thought still it was just going to be this hobby, fun thing. I was going to create some snakes, and but very quickly I was like, no, this is just the same as me doing leopard geckos as a business. And so the collection kind of got revamped a couple of times very quickly. Bought that collection about 7 or 8 years ago, probably 8 years ago now. Kept a lot of that. It was very pied heavy, and I was a big pied. I was telling you, I thought I would never have pieds. Pieds were my focus, and so I kept a large chunk of that collection. And then, the clowns and things like that, man, it wasn't even on my radar until, later on. But in that process, man, we very quickly learned, in that first couple of years, and then going into buying that collection, we really learned, like, I would say, again, very quickly, like, it wasn't just, get this, get that. Like, you need to be more strategic or whatever. Right? I needed to pinpoint more what I needed and what to like build the collection. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Real quick, want to give a shout out. Appreciate you, More Valley. Appreciate the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So did you have like mentors at that time kind of pushing you in that direction, or you just kind of like came to that?
I did. The first 4 people in the industry that really kind of jump out to me that, were my foundation, is that guy by the name of Jim Stepflug. I hope I say Jim's name wrong. I always think I say it wrong. And then Brock Wagner, and then Joe and John of JSA, and then JD from JD Constriction. I would say those 4 people were very, vital to my beginning. That really pushed me and catapulted me, and a chunk of that is still together, today. So, now I vend a lot with Joe and with JD. We do a lot of shows and things together. So, yeah. So,
calling back to that advice, like, what was some of the best advice you got back in the day that you still like use today?
Yeah, that's interesting, man. JD, I'm going to go with JD's advice. Not that I couldn't pick something from each one of those guys, but JD's very marketing heavy. And, he taught me really early on, I was so business minded at the time that I thought I needed to make X amount of dollars and things at each show and whatnot. And when you got skunked at a show, I was really upset. And John very early on was like, hey man, making money at a show, it's not really about making money at a show. It's about, advertising yourself and letting people get to know you and building relationships, showing what you're breeding, show the quality of your snakes. And so John very early on changed my mindset on how, we walked into shows and how we viewed shows. And that continued. John's even to this day, like, it's all about tweaking your booth and trying to, make it, eye appealing and things like that. And so still to this day, John is always, if he feels like there's something that's going to work for him, he shares it, with me all the time. And I have to thank him, as he's been a huge help for me over the years.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's spot on. Like, every time I go to a big show and I get to connect with people, I get to talk with people, because you see people on the internet all the time and you get to talk to them and stuff like that. And that's cool. Like, I'm really glad that we have that in place, but there's no substitute for those in-person tangible connections. And every time I go to like a big show and see a whole bunch of people and just like really get to kind of network and commune and all that good stuff, like, I feel like I just leveled up a little bit just by, by having the opportunity to make those connections. So shows are like huge.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I spoke, briefly about how John taught me about how, my mindset about shows. That's growing for me to, really feel the same way, man. It's about making relationships and friendships, and that's, here's the thing, man, without some of that stuff, I mean, I fight depression, daily. It's a large part of my life. And some of these people that I've met, man, I could care less if we ever talk about snakes ever again, but they've, helped me through, things that are real to me, man. That's what means a lot to me, man. I would have never met those people without going to those shows. So shows are important. Not just to, try to make money. They're important to, again, build your relationships and friendships, and you'll learn a lot. Be open-minded. That's one thing I think our industry lacks, is I don't know if people are closed-minded, but people are so set in their ways a lot of times, and it starts a lot of our drama in our industry. If people are a little more open-minded, man, and whatnot, I think we would all be in a better place.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. So, staying on kind of like the similar subject of relationships, so has there ever been like a connection you made, and you've touched on this some, but like, is there another story that you can kind of pull from where you made a connection, like a networking connection, and at some point in the future it paid dividends to have that connection? And can you speak to like another example?
Yeah, so I got brought to the Reptile Super Show by a few guys from Texas, Milo Garcia. I hope I said that right, Milo. And then another guy named MJ, Sean Barnett. And MJ really kind of pushed it, not the MJ, over on another podcast, but another guy, Michael Jamie's his name.
Okay.
Invited
Still
me out to do. Oh, go ahead.
I said still a Michael. Shout out to the Michaels.
Right. Yeah. My son's a Michael. So good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I went out to that show, and I met, me and Sean and like Milo and that group somewhat fallen apart, but like me and Sean still talk, quite a bit. We still do shows and things together. And then you take the whole step of me being at these Arlington or at these California shows, and you intermix like Instagram. I met a really good group of guys. Antoine. So me, Antoine, Andrew from Redwood, Jerome, Jacob from Civil, like we all vend at California together now. And then we bring, Josh and Kendall come as well from out here. And so, man, that's the payoff, is that I met these guys that like, I not no shit, man. I mean, I don't mean to sound like a dummy or something, but I mean, I feel like they're brothers of mine, right? Like these people, like I feel like they've been a part of my life forever, and that's been the payoff. And it's furthered. We met. I saw Tony was in here from Next Level. Like I got to meet Tony through those guys, and Mike Port. California has just been a treasure trove of people, really.
Nice.
And so that's really been the biggest payoff. And sure, like I think from the business standpoint, there's a payoff too. Like meeting those guys, we all help each other out. Like, oh, so and so has this, or Troy has that, and so we help each other with sales, I think. And so I mean, obviously that's another payoff too. But to me, man, the biggest payoff is people.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, Antoine is cool. Jacob is cool too. I had Jacob on the show, and then Antoine will be on the show too. And I talked to Antoine like on a pretty frequent basis.
Yeah, next time you talk to him, ask him just say, how's those seafood towers?
Seafood towers? Yeah, I'm gonna hit him.
Yeah, hit him with the seafood tower question and see what he says.
Funny story about Antoine, and I guess it's just because like his name starts with an A, so it's always at like the top of my contacts. But like anytime I butt dial somebody, it's always Antoine.
Oh, nice. Always, yeah.
Always Antoine. And he's texting like, was that for real this time? I was like, nah, bro, actually it wasn't. Like,
that's awesome.
And then when I call him and I miss him and it's actually for real, I have to follow up with a text. Hey, that was actually for real, bro. So like,
that's great. Yeah, you gotta like text him like a heads up, like, hey man, I'm really trying to call you this time.
Like always. It just happens every single time. If I butt dial anybody, it's Antoine.
That's awesome. Hey, and real quick, I saw a couple questions off the side. Asking about if I was going to be at Arlington. Yeah, we're going to continue to do all the NERBC shows. So Schaumburg, Tinley, St. Louis, Arlington, I'll always be at those. And then I'll keep trying to do a Reptile Super Show at least once a year. And there's a few other shows. I've been doing a Reptile Nation lately in Denver. I just did that. I'll definitely go back to that. And then I think I saw somebody ask if I've hit a visual mahogany monarch yet. Short answer is no. Long answer is give me a couple of months. So
gotcha. Yeah. You got that in one clutch, or you got multiple shots of that?
Right now, let me see. Trying to think. I think currently I have one clutch, but I have another pairing. I think I just checked. Me and Lisa just ultrasounded the other night. I think I had a girl around 11 millimeters. So I'll start. I usually start pairing around 10 to 12. So I have a second pairing, different genes, but still mahogany and monarch at play. So we'll see what happens.
Gotcha. And real quick, while we kind of close to the subject of shows, like, what's your favorite show to vend?
Yeah, I've asked that. It seems like on every podcast or something I get asked that, man. It's such a tough question. I don't know if I can really pick one favorite. I always say that I can pick two. Like Arlington is my favorite NERBC show, and the Reptile Super Show is a very close second, or very much a tie.
Gotcha.
I really enjoy those two shows.
Gotcha. Okay. And so for like the Reptile Super Shows, because of like the relationships with all those West Coast.
It is. I mean, we've done really well out there dollars wise. I won't lie. Like I told you earlier, man, I'm an open book. By far, when it comes to the dollar side of things, that's probably my best show.
Nice.
The thing that is the icing on the cake, man, of that experience is the fact that, yeah, there's just so many relationships out there that we have. And I always wish we had more time, to be in California. Last time we actually took a little extra time. And so that was kind of nice. Got to spend like an extra day and a half with a couple guys. Got to have dinner with Jacob, and you're not in a rush and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I do. I really enjoy the tough part about, California for us is just the drive, right? It's I could do it. Me and Lisa went overnight last time. We drove straight through about 28 hours, 29 hours. And it just kind of beats you up. And so normally we take like 2.5 days. We leave on a Wednesday. We basically get there Friday afternoon, set up, do the show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we start driving home. We're home, late Monday, early Tuesday or something. And you're gone for basically a week, man. The animals are on the road. Things are stressed out. You're trying to, you want to care about the animals, and it's just it's stressful. Like I always fear, like in the summertime, like if you were to break down, I mean, it's 110 in the desert. I mean, I'm screwed, right? Like them animals are going to cook. I mean, we bring like a whole cooler full of ice packs. And then on the winter side of things, we bring like a bunch of extra heat packs with us. And so, I mean, certainly trying to plan for it, but it's nerve wracking. But outside of that, man, at the show, being there, like absolutely love the Super Show. Great variety, huge show. Rainey puts on an absolutely wonderful show. He's a very good show promoter. And like I said, man, it's the relationships that we've had there. It's just that second to none. Good people.
Gotcha. And so when you're doing like the trips that take multiple days, like when you have to stay at a hotel, I'm assuming you're staying at like a hotel, like kind of away. So what do you do with the snakes? Do you bring them in the room? Like,
we do. Yeah. I've never left the animals in the car. I think there's been times that I probably could have weather-wise, but that's a worry. I don't think I would sleep.
Yeah,
we've been broke into. We were broke into at the last California show. Somebody cut my topper on my truck and like stole like my lights and some other stuff. And
oh wow.
Yeah, so that sucked, man. But I don't think I could ever leave the animals out, so it's most hotels that we go to. It's not like I'm being honest about it and telling them like, hey, I'm bringing a bunch of snakes, but they see me cart by them a lot of times with these giant cases and, boxes that say live, whatever. And so I've only been kicked out of one hotel. I got kicked out of Harrah's in Vegas at midnight. After a Reptile Super Show, we got there about 9:00. And bellhop dude or whatever like helps us take our shit to our room, and he's like amazed by our story about these snakes and being at this Reptile Super Show, and he's like on cloud 9. And we get to our room, and at this point I think I was still gambling, so this was probably like, I'm in GA now, so I'm in Gamblers Anonymous, so I'm gonna say this is like 8 years ago. I can't quite remember. I might not have been gambling. Maybe my wife was gambling. So we went down. I remember we went and ate, and I think she was playing at like a slot machine. And we went back to our room at like 12:00, and both of our cards didn't work. And so we went to the front desk, and I'm like, hey, our cards aren't working. And the lady's like, and she was like, look, kind of pops up with a surprised look. And she was like, you need to talk to our night manager. And I was like, okay. And he came out, man. He was really, really cool. Very nice about it. He offered to put the snakes in a, basically like a luggage hold, but I was like, hey man, I've got $100,000 worth of snakes here. I know that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but it means a lot to me. And it was still like 90 degrees at night, and so I was like, I can't do that. And he was like, hey, I'll refund your money, blah, blah. And so we ended up having to go to a Holiday Inn in Vegas about 1:30 in the morning or something. And then any other time now, man, that's just, I stay at the same Holiday Inn. The people there have been great to us. And so that's my only been kicked out of a hotel story. So,
damn, so it was the bellboy who was excited about the snakes. I guess he
oh
really
yeah, I kind of left that part out. So he told all the other ones like how cool about this, great story, and basically got back to the manager, right? Because I asked the guy, I'm like, how do you even know? And he was like, the bellhop was like amazed with your stuff, man, but he probably shouldn't have said anything. And I was like, oh, okay.
Dang. Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. So earlier when you were talking about kind of your growth in the breeding aspect of it, you were talking about like your projects like changing and kind of like your collection like going through like an evolution. So where are we at with it right now? Like where are your projects at and what are you working on and kind of where you're trying to go with it?
Yeah, man. I think I'm in evolution step 3. I feel like my collection has changed twice, and I feel like it needs to change again. It's tough. I think you have like passion projects, and you have projects that you just enjoy, and there's projects that are popular, and trying to like I guess keep a nice diversified whatever of everything in your snake room is maybe somewhat impossible. And so I am entirely too pied heavy, and so I'm trying to maybe move some of the pied stuff out to make room for some other projects. If I had a big circle graph or something, man, I think literally like half of my collection is probably pied, and then the other, maybe even more, it's probably like 60%. And so we heavy and pied. I worked the Monarch project pretty hard. I bought into that through TJ, and then I also bought some stuff from that's actually how I met TJ, and I bought some stuff from the UK, and then when Kyle and Liz from KE Royals got out, I bought out their remaining Monarch project too. And so, Monarch became a pretty good size project within my snake room. I have a decent amount of clown stuff. And to be honest, man, almost my whole room is pretty well all recessive. I think I right now have one animal left that's not tied to a recessive, whether it be visual or het. And so, I have such this. I hope nobody's like, man, Troy, you're stupid. But I just have I have a hard time making straight codom snakes. As pretty and stuff as some of they are, I've just had such a bad experience over time of like trying to move some of those and sell them. I think where we are as an industry is recessive heavy. That's what people want. Right. And so for me personally, that's the direction I went. So my room is it's just all recessive. So we have, like I said, pied, clown, we have lav, Monarch, Sunset, hypo. I just picked up puzzle stuff. I have some Xanthic stuff, some triple hets that are DG Xanthic pieds. We have some DG stuff. So it's pretty well all recessives, man. And I'm trying. There's probably only a couple of recessive projects I don't have, and so whether we pick that up at some point or not down the road. But yeah, very recessive heavy. Unfortunately, I do think I'm a little heavy on the pied side, so I'm just trying to figure out what's good to keep and what I'd want to bring in. And so I am at a little bit of a point where I would like to either downsize the collection or just get rid of a part and maybe replace those bins with just a different project or expand on a project I already have.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes perfect sense. And that's where I'm at with it right now too, in terms of like animals that I pick up. Like it's probably been well over a year since I picked up anything that didn't have like some sort of like recessive, whether it was like at least het for one thing, preferably double het or a visual het or a visual, just something with a recessive kind of in the mix. And that's what we've been doing for a while. And the way we've been kind of like going, I still do have some animals that I picked up like early on that don't have any recessives, but that's like definitely becoming the exception rather than the rule. Whereas at first I was picking up a lot more just like kind of codom animals, and I would
Oh yeah.
probably still pick up like a codom right now, like an animal that just had codom, but it would have to be like some sort of exception. Like maybe it's like a breeder size female that's got like 5 codoms in it that goes well with the Ultra Clown project, and so that makes sense. I can make some double heads and like build for the future. Or maybe it's like a high end codom, and I want to get a male so I can work it into some of my recessive projects or something like that. So I'm not saying I won't ever pick an animal up that doesn't have a recessive, but I'm definitely looking for recessives right now.
Yeah, and I just saw Dale's comment. He says I haven't bought anything in over a year. I think hopefully this doesn't sound like cocky or stupid or something, but I think you get to a point within your collection where there's like one animal you need, right? Like I need this one animal to set off the rest. And so instead of going from like, oh, I'll just buy these clowns and blah, blah, you get really selective, and it goes from like, oh, I need these 4 to these 3 to these 2. And, right now I haven't bought a ton lately either. And really, I have just a couple animals that I'm really trying to find to kind of, take the collection another step. And so, and it gets harder as you expand into some of these high-end projects and things, and you're looking for that next high-end animal to like really catapult you. There's only so many people making them, and you got to be right there, right then, and have your money ready. And so you miss out. I've missed out on a few, and I maybe instead of waiting an hour, I should have just said yes. And so there's animals, key animals that I missed out on in the last year, man, that I wish I would have, in hindsight, I wish I would have pulled the trigger on, and but unfortunately didn't. And so it gets to a point, man, where it's kind of neat that you're not buying animals all the time, but at the same time, like, you're upset because you want to buy something, but you don't want to just waste your dollars, right? Like, you want to find that animal that you really want. And so it's neat to get to that point.
Gotcha. I'm not quite there yet.
You'll get there.
To go, but I definitely want to be there.
Yeah, you'll get there, man. I think, and really that level is what you set, right? Like, anybody can set their bar where they want it to be. And I think wherever you set that bar, you still get to that point where, like, maybe you don't want to have, you don't want to buy $15,000 and $20,000 and $25,000 animals, but you want to buy, $5,000 animals. So now your one key animal is that $5,000 animal. And so it's still a level, right? And so I think people can set their bar where they want. I never thought I would get to that point. And really what I think led me to, spending, a decent amount of money or big money like that on animals, was, project driven. Like, I was like, ooh, what do I want to be known for? Or like, what animal am I really passionate about that, like, can be like, oh yeah, Troy works that animal, and very much Pied was kind of that thing, but, Monarch has really taken over for me. And, I'm trying to work it as heavily as I can. And I really hope that this year we, put out some fun stuff and, kind of go from there, man. But again, I think everybody kind of sets their bar, and so there's no shame of where your bar is either.
Gotcha. I will say it has, like, and when I say it, I mean like my selection process and like what I'm looking at when I'm looking to go get animals, that has changed. Before it was just like whatever caught my eye, but now it's like,
yeah,
it's more intentional. And it's looking at just different genetics, right? And so like I am looking at it with a little more discernment now. So I mean that's a step in the process too. And I guess I'll be
Mike, yeah. I totally get that, man. I remember telling people, like, they're like, what do you look for? Oh, whatever catches in my eye. That was kind of my response. And then it grew, man, to kind of what you said, right? It's like, oh, well, now I know I need this, and that's really just continued. I just need this. And so you're right there, like if you've gone past the part of, oh, I just bought it because it's pretty or like eye-catching or whatever, you're into a different level. And it's the level, I think, that, all the guys you've probably, done on this podcast, that's probably where they are. And so, man, you're right there with them.
Definitely. What was I about to? Oh yeah, so you had mentioned, like, so obviously Pied is something you want to cut down on, and you had mentioned kind of like refining your collection. So what would be some other moves that kind of refine it, and what would you like focus on?
Yeah, I think like, there's different avenues to go for me. Like, I could keep all the Pied girls and, just work them a different way. David, I think, just said hurricane everything.
Hurricane everything.
I put hurricane on the clown side of things. I've never really put hurricane towards the pied stuff. I have one pairing for that currently. Actually, I think there's a clutch in the incubator. And I've looked at some of the stuff Justin's done, right? So like, in some ways, right, I could just keep all that pied stuff and be like, all right, hey, I'm just going to throw hurricane to all this simple pied, single pied girls or whatever, and make some hets, or maybe I buy a really nice hurricane pied combo from Justin or whoever, and I work it into that, right? Or yeah, you could sell that stuff, right? Open up that bin space, and then I'm really light on puzzle. I have like 3 or 4 hets. Could I invest some money? Could I take that and invest some money in a couple really nice girls, or some holdbacks or whatever? Whatever you want to do there. And I think you have to just weigh your options, right? Like you have to keep it a certain amount of passion. Otherwise, man, it turns to a job. You're not going to like it. And there's days I've felt like that. And I think when you have days like that, man, you have to reevaluate. And so for me, like, that's kind of where I am in a way. Like, I'm trying to evaluate, do I take some of this pied stuff and do something different with it that I don't have and continue to, down the pied road? Or do I move it and invest in something else? Do I bring in more clown stuff? Do I bring in more puzzle stuff? Like, I bought into lavender, last year too, kind of heavy. I had some people getting out of some stuff. And so, I kind of think that was maybe, in hindsight, I'm not as pleased, visually. I think that, I got away from albino pieds and stuff because I always hate like some part of this conversation because I don't want to sound like I'm kicking rocks at animals, right? Like, but for me, albino pieds I didn't have any joy in them anymore. And so, I moved away from it, and I thought, well, lavender will kind of replace that. And I do like it, but it can be somewhat of a tougher sale. I think that lavender and things like that are limiting, right? You're always going to have a yellow and white snake, or orangish, or whatever you want to say, but it's still going to be an albino snake. And so, some point it's limiting. And so I feel like, did I take up too much rack space with that project? Do I move some of it out too? And so again, man, I think it's just reevaluating, where's your passion lie? What's selling? You have to look at all this from a business standpoint at some point, or else what are you doing, right? Like if you want to go that route, if it's purely just a hobby and for fun, and you're going to have 10 clutches and you're just going to, enjoy it, then great. That's awesome for you. Where I am, I think right now, man, it's a business, and it's taken a large chunk of my time away from the studio. I'm in the studio right now, our photography studio. And so I have to look at it as a business standpoint. So at some point, I think you have to be like, passion projects and what's bringing in the dollars. And so you do have to somewhat play, chasing what people enjoy. There's just a vicious circle, really, of trying to figure it out. And so I'm probably rambling. I ramble a lot.
No, you're making perfect sense. You got to balance it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just really tough, man, because you think it's balanced. And then for me, I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm really happy with the collection. I feel like it's balanced. And then the next night I'm kicking rocks at myself and being like, I don't like any of it. I want to get out. I want to change everything. I want to sell it all and start over, blah, blah, blah. And you have to, like, those relationships that you build, that's when you turn to those people, and they help bring you down a level. And but at the same time, they help you evaluate like, what can I do different, right? To not feel that way. And it comes down to balancing your collection in different ways.
Gotcha. So I asked Nicole from Canadian Regis this, like, do you think we've hit peak pied? And she had a really interesting answer. And I'm paraphrasing, but she said essentially she doesn't think there is a peak pied. It's just we got to figure out like what there is to put in pied to make something different happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, she's very right. And I've had a little bit of this talk with Justin too and stuff, like, where do you go? Again, I think where we are with going to triple and quad recessives and things, I think that'll obviously open up a lot of doors for Pied. I think is like Pied built with codoms. I think there's just tiny tweaks, like it's, I really love the super OD, like super inchy. I like a lot of, the white, but just a large part of, like orange saddles. I like the color. Justin, I think reposted a picture the other day of his black pastel mahogany, maybe some yellow belly or something pied. I think that looks really good, right? It almost looks like a Burmese like retic, or it looks like a pied like retic or something. It's a really neat look to it. In some ways, man, you do feel a little bit like, we've hit a wall with pied, and that's not necessarily true. But it feels like that at times. And for me, I think it just comes because I have so much of it. And so she's not wrong. I think it's finding, again, I think part of it is if you look at it, like, are you trying to please yourself or are you trying to please the industry? And so pleasing the industry can be tough. You're setting yourself up to be kicked in the nuts. It's tough, man. But pleasing yourself is easy. That sounds really bad. Somebody in the comments is going to roll with that comment.
And that's going to be the clip. That's all. That's all.
Totally should have reworded. I should have stopped right here with that one. But yeah, that's where the truth lies, I think, is just, doing, projects for yourself. I don't think Pied is limited. I think from an industry standpoint right now, I think people are waiting for the next aha Pied.
So that lace stuff that Justin hatched out about a month or so ago, like that was some really nice stuff.
Yeah.
Those lace clown pies, man, that was insane. Yep. Like I really like that Buckeye patterning across like the back, man. That was just insane. And so like that really made me excited for the Clown Pie project and just putting lace into it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So that's the route that I've went. Making some different hats and things with lace. Did like my lace clown. Oh geez, I'm trying to think what I took it to. Maybe like a super inchy pied or something like that. I can't remember what I did. I think I also took my lace clown to like a clown het pied, right? Because now with like testing, I can gamble a little bit more, right? And I can pay $60 and find out what I'm holding back or what I'm selling and what I'm selling it as. And so, testing's opened the door for, some gambles like that. And so, the lace side of things and white lace, that's got me excited. I think lace and hurricane and, maybe, if you can do inchy, super inchy within pied, you retain more pattern, I think it would probably give you something really neat to look at. But again, man, it's the problem with pied is you can't predict the pattern. And so I think sometimes that limits us too, right? Like we like, oh, this is going to be super cool. And then it comes out with like a head stamp and you're like, oh, bummer, And so, but yeah, I there's definitely a lot out there yet to be done. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely going to continue to work the pied. I really like pied, and it's still a market out there for pied, and I do think there's still some things to be tapped into. And like I said, the lace in the Clown Pied project really excites me. And most of the pied stuff that I'm going to be working is going to be like double recessive stuff, and most of the Clown Pied, to be quite honest. I do have a shot at like, it's a long shot, but I have a shot at a super inchy, super OD yellow belly pied. If I hit that, man, it would be insane. It would be insane. I do want to pause for the calls real quick because we got the homie TJ in the building. I appreciate that, brother.
I hate him. He's the worst.
I appreciate it, brother.
Of course, TJ would be the one guy to catch that comment and be able to forever have it, part of this podcast with a super chat. Thanks, TJ.
I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And TJ's one of those guys, early on when we were talking about relationships, I found TJ, I think, on Morph Market, and he had a Monarch male for sale. And I remember, I think I've told TJ this. I remember calling a couple people like, anybody know who this TJ guy is? Like, I don't want to buy this, X amount of dollar animal from some Yahoo I've never met, blah, blah. And so I'm so happy I did, right? Like that was one of those things, like I had never met him. A couple people I was like, yeah, I know who he is. And, you're fine, blah, blah. And if I wouldn't have bought that animal from TJ at the time, like, TJ is, again, like, one of these guys that I just feel like he's been part of my family forever. And, he and I have had some, really great life talks. He's been an absolute outstanding, mentor to me when it comes to, the ball pythons and business. TJ is very business driven and very, very smart, and obviously TJ will know, like, as far as the Mandarin stuff goes, I wouldn't be where I'm at Mandarin wise without TJ. So,
That's
um,
crazy Mandarin stuff.
yeah, and
Crazy.
his Mandarin side of things, like, I'll never catch him. But I certainly absolutely love what he does, man. He's got some nice stuff.
Nice. And moral of the story, y'all, do not overplease yourself. You will go blind.
Oh my God, I love it. It's so bad. The things I say, yeah.
So we talked about
tell ya.
genetic testing a little bit, and so obviously that's something that's had like a huge impact on the market and on the industry itself, and it will continue to do so going forward, especially as they come out with more and more tests. Like, what are some other kind of like major things that are happening that you see, or major trends that you see for the industry going forward?
Yeah, I think, with genetic testing, I think at first, there was a lot of fear about it. You and I were talking about this before the show, right? Like change is always hard to accept. And I think that the industry was fearful of that change, like what it could do for us. I just think it opens up your door to, you're skipping some time. If you made possets, you're not raising it up and finding that male or whatever, vice versa, to take back and then waiting for an ovulation and eggs in 60 days and cutting an egg to find out I hit or I missed. But is this still a posset and I just missed the odds, right? You're taking all that out. And so I think if you use it, wisely, I think if you use it to your benefit, it's beneficial. I mean, you're finding out data that you're not waiting on. And so I think it definitely gives, it opens up that door to take some gambles within your room. I don't like to waste pairings. And so there's a lot of times where I'm like, do I really want to make pos quad hets? Like, and find out, years down the road, if I actually made a quad het through pos hets, now you could do that and send it in, man, and you might get really lucky, right? And or you find out, what male and females in that clutch to keep out to take to each other or whatever. So I think, I at first maybe I was a little bit like, I don't like this. I'll eat my own words, man. I really think genetic testing has its place, and it's here, right? So there's really nothing we can do about it. So like. Right. Either utilize it or do your thing. I believe you should utilize it.
I agree 100%. 100%. 100%. Is there anything else that you see that can or that you see on the kind of horizon that you think will like heavily impact the market?
If we could determine, sex and eggs, man, that would be like leopard geckos. That would be game changing, but. That's not coming.
That would be wow.
Right? That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, man, I just don't, nothing that I can think of off the top of my head that, I think is coming. I think right now where we're at, and people going to, I mean, obviously, man, what do I want to say? Like double recessives are almost a thing of the past in a way, right? They're not, but they kind of are, because we're all trying to hit triple recessives and quad recessives already. Like we're working towards that way. And so again, man, I think it's just opening the door to like really push that side of the projects and, get you there faster, and which I think is great, man. We all will, get to see some really cool animals a lot quicker. And so, yeah, man, I'm excited with it. I wish there was something else cool out there that I could talk about, but yeah, there's nothing I can think of at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was a good answer though, for real. Can you talk about like a moment or like what's the most gratifying thing about this business to you? And can you like speak to like a story that maybe kind of exemplifies that thing.
Yeah, man, I think off the top of my head, two things come to mind. Not in any particular order here. I'll start with time. I think that working for yourself in any industry and giving the opportunity to have time with your friends and family, like, we're only on this earth for so long, and no day is guaranteed, right? And so both the photography studio and obviously the snake side of things has given me a great amount of income to live a lifestyle that me and my wife, really enjoy. We've traveled a lot. Generally, we travel around the shows and things like that. We don't necessarily take just vacations, but we still count that as travel and time we get to spend with, friends. That's probably a good short answer on the time side of things. I think the second part of that, I think I've probably touched on this, man. Like, it's the people, this industry is by far brought, the greatest people into my life. I'm a people person. I have kind of a unique, I don't know. I'm somewhat of I have a lot of anxiety. A lot of people makes me really nervous. At the same time, like, I really enjoy people. And so I enjoy meeting people. And so, I don't know if I have necessarily, I mean, I have 1,000 stories, right, of meeting, I could go through this list of, comments and tell you where I met so-and-so. And, but that's the short answer, is that, it's the people. And that's probably really the number one, man, is I've just gained so much. I've gained so many good people in my life through breeding snakes or reptiles, which is so, really, when you think about it, man, it's almost funny, right? Because our industry's looked at like, ugh, from the normal people. People don't like snakes, right? Or I shouldn't say, but you run into 10 people that don't before you run into the 11th that does. Oh, and so I think a lot of people think we're all a bunch of weirdos and like, whatnot, man. And we're not, right? We're business people and we're all normal. And I've met just the greatest people, through this industry. So that's what I'm most thankful for.
I know coming into it, like early on, like I kind of sort of knew like there was a community and I'd heard about the community and I was starting to meet people, but I couldn't have envisioned like the community and kind of like the network and things that we've been able to build like over these past few years. I mean, outside of family and work, like this is like my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And I interact with like Matt from Ebony Ivory Reptiles, Jeffy at Xotics, Unc from Whittemore Constrictors, Justin from Armless Angels. Like I talk to those people, I talk to them every single day. Like I talk to those brothers every single day, and then others. Like I mean, just so many people that I talk to every single day. Like the whole Me Familiar group. We got another chat with like Antoine and a bunch of folks, Reggie and all those folks. And so it's just like so many people that I just talk to like so frequently, and like just building community and building relationships. And I'm sure I left some people off too, and not intentionally, but it's just like so. It's like you start building like this community, this family, this network, and that's huge. Like I say, outside of family and work, like this is like my whole life. Like these snakes and this community that I've kind of like become a part of around just having these snakes and being in this industry. So it's a dope thing, 100%.
Yeah. Yesterday I spent the day with JSA up in Minnesota. Their nephew, we did his senior pictures, right? So like our two industries met. And so I got to use, I guess, that skill of photography with my, reptile community. And so we photographed his nephew's senior pictures. We do dinner and hang out in the snake room. It's a 4-hour drive for me. So like on the way home, I talked to Andrew for damn near 4 hours. Today I dropped off rats at John Dagg's house. And on the way back, I talked to Jason Kittinger, and it's, again, man, like so many times it's not even about snakes and stuff. You're talking about, your life and kids and your well-being, and that's really special to me, man, is you really see the friendship change from just talking about some snakes or whatever to, really caring about each other and their lives and their families. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really been a neat experience.
100%, 100%. So speaking of Matt got a good question, but before, since you just mentioned photography, I got one real quick question before we ask Matt's question. So DSLR or mirrorless, and why?
Mirrorless, 100%.
Why is that?
Well, from a mechanic standpoint of the camera, like you're taking an element out of the way. So in a DSLR, as like that image and light travels through the lens and hits the mirror and down to the sensor and stuff, it's all those steps takes away from that data, right? So now that you've taken out a large step of the DSLR and it's going straight from lens straight to sensor, for the most part, your image is better. So like a mirrorless camera out of the box to a DSLR out of the box will make a better image. You may not notice it like in your eye, like if you looked at it, but the data that's there and what you can do with that data is better. So, and mirrorless have came down so much price wise that if somebody was buying a camera, whether it be an inexpensive mirrorless or a pro mirrorless camera, you're so much better. To be honest, man, I think at some point DSLRs will just go away. It'll be like VCRs and DVDs, right? Like you're not going out and buying a VCR, and so
I just bought one yesterday. What do you mean?
That would be my luck, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, man, mirrorless is definitely the way to go.
Okay.
And I see some guys like I shoot Sony. I saw Nixon put up Sony. So, every camera brand has its, good things and bad things. But Sony is definitely on top of when it comes to the mirrorless camera itself. Sony is very much the leader in that category.
Gotcha. And Keys made a good point. Like, I find myself this. He said I spend more time with breeders than the people I grew up with, and like 100%.
Yeah.
And Keys is another one, man. Just the community that they've built. Like,
yes,
I said it on the podcast before. Like a large portion of the people that I know in this industry is just like being around the community that Keys and them built. So like, shout out to them too, 100%.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Matt said, do you think we're moving too fast, like with triples and the quads and all that, given that we haven't even made all the doubles, and hell, we haven't even made all the singles yet?
No, it's very true. I do think that we're moving very fast. And that's good and bad. I think the good of it is that you're opening a door for the people that maybe I'm trying to think how to say this correctly, but like maybe for the people that can afford to get to triples and quads quicker, opens up a door for people to get to doubles at a lesser price. And doubles are still highly valuable in your collection, or whether it be for sale or just collection building. So I think moving that fast is a good thing for a couple different categories or levels of people within our industry. I don't know if I have a better opinion than that. I mean, I do think that it's true, though. I do think that we're moving very fast.
Gotcha. Yeah, we talked about that plenty of times. Like, are we moving too fast? I mean, because like I said, there's even like some single combos, just let's just say clown. There's some single clown combos that we still gotta hit, and then obviously like doubles. Pretty much everything that looks good in a single has the opportunity. Like a single clown has the opportunity to look good in a hypo clown, in my opinion, because I'm a big hypo clown guy, and so that's a double that I'm really excited about. And then DG clown too. Obviously I worked that one as well, and so it's a lot of doubles that we still need to hit. And
100%, man. It's almost mind-boggling to me that, like, in some ways, if you think about the conversations you have, or people like yourself that do shows like this, I think it's almost like there was this weird gap where it was like, oh, blah 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 doubles, and then all of a sudden it was just boom, right? We went to like triples and quads, and it's like, what happened to double recessives? And there's so many double recessives that haven't happened. There's so many double recessives with codom stacks that haven't happened, and so yeah, man, it is really interesting. And again, I think genetic testing is going to I guess, help or hinder some of that, right? It's going to move people even faster. But yeah, I would say where we are right now, you know, to be honest, man, I would really like to hear like what a guy like Ozzy or Justin or, you know, Will from RCR, like I would love to hear how they would answer that question, you know, versus myself. So that's a great question.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm like, man, I just produced my double head. Slow down.
Right? Yeah. Yep. It's funny because when people like again, man, I go back to conversations, but people will ask me like, "Hey, how many triple heads do you have?" And I'm like, "I have one. Well, I have two, but like." And then I'm like, I barely have that many double heads, you know? And so, you know, it's just funny to me, you know, it's such a great question and such a great topic. I think you could damn near build a show off of that one question.
Oh yeah. The whole just dive into it 100%.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like, so right now I've got double recessive animals in the collection. Like I've got some double heads, I've got some double visuals, and I've got some visuals that are head and things like that. But I don't have a ton. Hopefully after this season, I'll have a lot more, and I'll maybe have like some visuals that are double head. And then next year, like I'll kind of build on that. Like I have some shots at more double visuals. I have shots at more double hits, and I have shots at visual hits. And so like I'll be building. But yeah, it's still a lot to be done in like the doubles and the triples, and like it's already on quads.
Yeah, and where we are, I think, I don't know how everybody feels about the market. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into like that we're in some weird snake recession. I think probably where we are as a society, as this country, you know, is money tighter than it was at a certain time? Probably. Are there more snakes available right now than in the past? Probably. But I think that where we are market wise is within your collection. Is it open? I think a season like right now and even probably next season really opens a door for you to like make some of those passion projects where you're, you know, making double and triple heads or even their pos double heads, right? That you can then test and things. So I think right now, if you have girls, you know, that aren't ready to go or going to be ready to go later on, and you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to make a visual, whatever, you know, put some thought into making some crazy double heads. I think now's the time, right? Like, it may be harder for us to sell animals the rest of this year and into next year. I think where we are right now, I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. But the way things are, I mean, I've been selling stuff. I think most people I talk to have been selling stuff, but it does seem different. So again, I just think it's time that maybe you have an opportunity to build up your whole back rack right now, in my opinion.
100%. So, what are some things that you've like learned about yourself being in this business?
Yeah. That's a good question, man. Like, where would I start? I think that, you know, something that I've learned a lot is probably with my anxiety and my depression. I think that I've found out that I'm not, I sometimes think when you have things like what I have, and that probably everybody in this comments has, you know, some type of, you know, whatever. But I think you feel alone in some ways. And so I think the thing I've learned about myself is that I'm not alone. I've met a lot of people that, you know, suffer with the same things I do, and it's made a very good community for me. I think it's also tests me a lot. I think that I try not to ever be excited about a clutch, because for me, if I build up a lot of excitement and I get let down, man, it really bothers me, and I get, you know, somewhat, you know, dark about it, or very deep, you know, sadness about this project not turning out the way I wanted it to. And that leads to things, you know, like I want out, I can't do this. And so I feel like I've learned how to navigate that, you know, because you're tested all the time. Oh, I've got this double recessive clutch, or I've got this triple, or I've got, you know, this crazy codom, blah, blah, blah. And you miss all over the map, right? Like, you have to be able to just get through that and on to the next clutch. There's nothing you can do about it. So I think that's some of the things that I've learned about myself. You know, I think you learn value a little bit about yourself, man. I'm very open book. I have a hard time valuing myself. I think the compliments that you see in these chats, the things you hear at a show, the hugs, the friendships made and things like that. Like it's taught me to, you know, maybe let that guard down a little bit and, you know, learn to value myself more. So yeah, that's a few things off the top of my head.
That's really dope, man. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Cool. So I got a few wrap-up questions before we get out of here, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your night. And so one of the questions that I've been kind of asking people lately, so with all the changes coming like with Morph Market, if you took over Morph Market tomorrow, what's one thing that you would add and one thing that you would take away?
Ooh, man, that's that's a really good question. What would I add and what would I take away? The thing I would add is within the search. So when I look into animals, I think everybody does something different. When I go to Morph Market, I pick priced highest, and then, you know, I kind of start from there. What I would want to add is for me to be able to like pick like highest priced and newly listed. And you can't, I don't think you can do that right now, or last I looked at least. You couldn't have those two things selected.
It's like either or.
Right. And so I wish you could do like some dual category, right? Filter action.
Oh, nice.
What would I take away? Oh, this might be, people might hate me for this. I think I might take away, there's like a community chat thing, right?
Yeah.
Like a forum. Yeah, I'd take it away.
Why is that?
For whatever reason, I would take it and Facebook and all of it away, right, man? Like, for whatever reason, where we are in society, like, why aren't we old enough to be able to respect and like talk to each other? And I just don't get the drama, like, and I don't get the keyboard warrior, like, I don't get like that mindset, and like, we should be building each other up, you know, and I feel like things like forums and Facebooks and things like that, though I'm very much involved and sometimes I'm probably part of the problem, I'm very honest, I would take it away because it's just one less aspect of this community being able to go at each other. To be honest, man, I've never really got in there, so it could be the most positive thing on the planet. I'm just saying from experience, like in most forums and things like that, there's always some type of, you know, evil that arises, and so I think that's what I would take away.
Gotcha. I feel like it's like different platforms kind of have different vibes. Like, for example, IG has a different vibe than Facebook. Like, I feel like IG, at least in our community, is generally more supportive, generally more fun, generally more like interactive, and like kind of like all those kind of good things. And you go down like a checklist of like what's a perfect kind of social media platform, and you start checking off more of that with IG. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think relatively speaking, it's better than Facebook. Whereas Facebook, you do see like a lot of like the toxicity, and like you definitely encounter a lot more keyboard warriors. And I think just kind of having like that internet armor emboldens people, right? Because like you wouldn't see like a lot of that same energy, I don't think, in person, right? Like,
right,
whole energy just change in person.
Yeah, they don't have like empathy. And, you don't have to face somebody, look them in the face, and call them a name or whatever you want to say. And
it's totally different. Because there's consequences and repercussions. For a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, you might get punched in the face.
Right.
Pretty hard to do on the other side of a screen. So. Yeah, man, it's that part of our industry is interesting, you know, and this whole Morph Market side of things, and people are really up in arms about whether they love it or hate it. And hey, man, that's Darren.
Can't tell if I froze or if.
Oh yeah, so I think we froze for a second.
Yeah.
Did you get me back?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, we're good. Yeah, this whole morph market thing, man, is just really interesting to me. And at the end of the day, man, I'm still getting inquiries and selling snakes. So I just don't get the whole up in arms. Like, take a step back. People get crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of watch all. It's almost like a case study in action. So yeah, I definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the sidelines with my popcorn, waiting for my green bubble to come so I can get some sales. All right. So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Anywhere in the world.
Money's no option.
All right. Well, I'm afraid to leave the country, so I've never really left the country. But I've traveled our country quite well. And the spot that I'm probably going to say might surprise some people, but there's a town in Colorado that's called Glenwood Springs, and I absolutely love it there. It's probably my peaceful place. And I was telling you earlier before the show, right, that me and Lisa really like Treasure Island down in Florida. Mm-hmm. That would be a close second too, man. Like if I could get rid of Florida's laws. So
yeah, 100%. 100%. All right. And so if you won $10 million tomorrow, how would you use it?
Interesting. I would give every penny of it away. I wouldn't keep a dime.
I think that's the first time I ever got that answer.
Yeah, man. I would rather. I think coming from a gambling world, right? So like the chance of winning. If that were to happen to me.
Looks like we froze again. Can y'all still hear me? Or is it me that's frozen?
Get me back. Did you get me back?
Yeah.
There we go. I think my internet froze. I'm sorry. I kicked it off, so maybe it'll be good now.
Okay. I didn't know if it was me or if it was you because I've been known to have issues with it. Okay. Gotcha. So I heard like you left off at like gambler and like the chances of winning and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been in Gamblers Anonymous for about 7 years. And so when I think of that question, and what like that could lead to for people like myself, like I think I would give every penny away, man. There's just I would get more joy out of changing other people's lives than that money changing my life.
Gotcha. That's dope, man. That's a dope response. Like I said, that's the first time that anyone's kind of answered like that. So yeah, good one. And then if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It's funny that I do little mini series like questions with my high school seniors. Okay. And I asked them like, who would you have dinner with if you could have one person, dead or alive, famous, friend, family, whatever.
Great minds think alike.
Right. I don't think anybody's ever asked me this question. So, Abraham Lincoln, okay. And my 2 grandfathers. One of them that I never met, and the other one I only knew. He died at 99, and I was probably 10. I would like to have a conversation with them I'll be 45 on Monday. I'd like to have a conversation with those 3 men.
Okay. And first of all, happy early birthday. And what are some questions you would ask?
Ooh, yeah. That's a good one. I would really want to pick Abraham Lincoln's brain, I think, on just, he by far my favorite president. I just spent some more time out in DC. I was out there for Honor Flight, which we take veterans out to see all the memorials. Oh, nice. Me and my wife stayed for a couple extra days. And so got to go to Ford's Theater. And that was like really like pretty heavy for me, just because I have such an just a love for Abraham Lincoln, man. I think he just was my favorite president. Him and JFK, which is really odd, right? Since they were both assassinated. And so, I think I would want to pick his brain. I think I would want to share with him where we are as a country, how I think. I would like to, if I could somehow, he could fast forward in time and know where we are. I would want to know what he thinks about where we are currently, from his days of a war within our country and dealing with slavery and to where we are now. And there's still a large divide between, people. I would want to know what he thinks. I would also back up this question. I would ask him like what he would do now, right? Like, again, if he would have that power to know where we are, I would want to know what he would do different. I feel like he thought he was bringing the country together and ending slavery and ending a war, giving people of color an opportunity to vote and things like that. So, that was coming. So I think in his mindset, I want to think he thought he was bringing our country together. I would want to know how he would do that now.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that would be a good question. That would be a good question.
Yeah.
Kind of what he thinks of where we are right now, given like how much time has passed and just kind of like the state of current affairs, if you will. Yeah,
man. Our country's a mess, dude. We're a messy people, and there's not, to be honest, I can't really think of too many things. I don't think there's another species that really kills themselves the way we do, right? Like we attack our own people in so many different ways. Yeah. It's just, where we are as a country, man, sometimes it saddens me.
I'm saying at least not on this planet, man.
Yeah. We're a mess. And my grandfathers, man, I don't know what I would ask them. I think I would want to just, my one grandfather fought in World War I and II. I got to know him a little bit. Like I said, he passed away when I was around 10, 11. My other grandfather, I would just want the opportunity to get to know him. So,
gotcha. Yeah. That'd be dope. That'll be dope. All right, brother. Well, it's been amazing tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the show and kicking it with us tonight. Is there anything you want to tell the listeners before we call it a night?
Well, maybe not so much the listeners. I mean, I do thank them. I absolutely adore the people I've met. I love that they take the time to, come and be in the chat, and have some fun. And but to you, man, like your opening too, like talking about U.S. Ark and stuff, like that's really appreciative. There's not enough of us that push it. I'm guilty. I try to talk about it, when it's, maybe whatever fresh in my head, but it's really something we should talk more about. And so I really appreciate that you take some time at the beginning of your show to, push that. Without US Ark, man, we're in trouble. And so, I certainly hope people, donate to that, whatever you can, and it all makes a difference. So, to you, man, I really appreciate that you take the time for that. And again, man, to the listeners, absolutely. I'm an open book, man. You can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I love human, connectivity and talking and whatnot. So, I thank you guys for taking the time tonight, and, hit me up if I can help out in any way. So
definitely, man. Looking forward to seeing you at a show soon. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I know time is money, time is valuable. So I definitely appreciate anytime someone takes time out of their schedules to come kick it with us.
No, thank you.
I appreciate it. Great conversation too, and hopefully we can get you on for round 2. You got any big plans?
Anytime, man. Yeah, anytime.
You got any big plans for your birthday? Or are you like
for my birthday? I think, JD's talking about having me over to, he's only a couple hours from me, and he's got some bison tomahawks. And JD is probably a better cook than he is a snake breeder. So if you think JD's like an awesome snake breeder, I'm trying to use that as the compliment of how good of a cook he is. And
Nice.
so we'll probably do that, man. And then I'm adopted. And so my birthday is very much a double-edged sword for me. It brings up a lot of sadness for me. And so my parents got me 2 days after I was born. And so in some ways I look more forward to May 24th than I do May 22nd. But I get to spend some time with them. They always make sure that we get together. And so that's always very special. My parents are in their 80s. And so, they're, without sounding completely morbid, man, that, their days are numbered and nobody lives forever. And so, I try to treasure those moments with them. So, yeah.
100%, brother. And to everyone in the chat, everyone who listens to this later, really appreciate all the support. Appreciate y'all coming out each and every week. And like I said earlier, we do have Antoine from High Desert Pythons coming on next week. So y'all make sure y'all check this out. We'll be uploading this to the audio podcast here later tonight. So definitely check this out. Appreciate all the support. Thank y'all for coming out. Be blessed. Peace. Can you hang out for just a second?